Hi, Hala. I'm going to ask you questions about your experience during liberation and the months immediately following that. First, I'm going to show you a map. It's a little dark. And I'm going to ask you if you knew anybody from these Jewish DP camps that are listed. There's some in Germany, some in Austria, some in Italy.
I don't have enough light.
Okay,
Wait.
we'll make the light. You want me to list them for you? Any of the names look familiar?
Names of...
Those are the Jewish DP camps.
Oh, they keep it. No, wait. Italy, I was not there. Germany, no, Linz.
Did you have any friends that were in those DP camps?
Not in Italy, not in Germany. What is it? Bad Reichenhall? Bergen-Belsen. This is after the war.
After the war.
Yeah, in Bergen-Belsen I know some people that were liberated in Bergen-Belsen, yes.
Who did you know from Bergen-Belsen?
Bergen-Belsen was Helen Annenstein. This is her married name. Her maiden name was, then it's Lola, my friend Lola.
What's her last name?
Her last name is Fine, and she was stop it for a minute. Hersenberg.
Okay.
Yeah. They were liberated in Bergen-Belsen. I was in camp, labor camp, in Czechoslovakia, which was on the border of Germany. It was actually, before the war, it was Czechoslovakia. Then the Germans occupied before the war, like 38, they took over this part. And this is where we came after Auschwitz and worked in a factory, ammunition factory. And that's why we were liberated by the Red Army.
And how did you end up meeting Lola?
Well, actually I remembered her by sight from the ghetto, by sight. But actually we met in a hotel in the 60s in the Catskills.
Okay.
And from then on we became very, she's my best friend, very close friend. So we have the same age,
right.
We have the same background.
Right.
You know, these things are usually making people
close. So the reason she told you she was in Bergen-Belsen,
yeah.
You didn't meet her at Bergen?
No.
Okay.
No, because I was never in Bergen-Belsen, as I told you where I was in Sudeten.
Well, we're going to go back to it. I just want to see who else you might know that was in DP camps. What friends?
My friends from these places, I don't think so. Not from these places. They were...
My mother?
Well, I know your mother from a different... you see, I was working with Bronka in the same factory in the ghetto. And we were not friends because...
Which ghetto?
Lodge ghetto, Litzmannstadt. I was not Bronka's friend. Bronka was a little bit older in those days when we were teenagers. Somebody who was even a year older wouldn't talk to you because that's the way it is today too. Bronka had a boyfriend, Bronka was already, I was still not up to it. But we used to talk sometimes during that hour that we had that miserable soup. And the connection was that Bronka's mother and my mother was sick at the same time, like sick to die. And we used to exchange stories about what's going on with the mothers. And I met your mother maybe a couple of times. She came to see Bernka. And I'm the same age as your mother, about. So it was a little different. She was willing to talk to me. And that was it. But after the war in the States, it must have been 1950, I came 40, in the 50s, I don't remember exactly. We went to a dance, survivors, some kind of a dance, a dinner dance. I was with my husband, and as we were, I remember, taking the coats, your mother and father stood right there, and she looked at me and I looked at her. Of course, we were still very young. It was only a few years after what we remembered each other. I said, I know you. And she said, I know you. Where did you live? What did you do? At the end, I told her where I worked in the ghetto. Oh, she said, my sister, Bronka come. I said, that's why I know you. You are Bronka's sister. We exchanged telephone numbers. I was living that time in Brooklyn. These were the first years that we were in the country. And no car yet, and no, very low-key, very low-key. But I did speak to her once in a while. But distance and having small children and being preoccupied with a million things, somehow it stopped. Then after some years I moved from there. We lost touch. And about, I would say 15 years ago, we were working for Hadassah, writing out envelopes to send out some New Year's cards or some invitations, I don't remember. And Hertha was among us doing the same thing. Hertha is not from Lodz, mostly my friend are. And I don't know how it came about. She says, yes, I have a very close friend, Genia Litvok, and her maiden name is Cohn. She's also from Lodz. I said, wait a minute, I know Genia Cohn Litvok. I said, she is Bronka's sister, blah, blah, blah. So I said, here's my telephone number. I would like to get in touch with her. And this is the way it started. We started talking. Following that, our reunion, we went with the Krakow organization to Israel on a trip for the 50th anniversary of Israel. My husband couldn't go. He was very busy with his business, but he said, you know what, you can go. So I schlepped along Lola. Her husband also was not available. And we got on this trip. And then that's when we physically got reunited with your mother, met your father. It was a pleasure. And we became very good friends since then.
Now, let me go back. That first party you were talking about.
Yeah.
In the 50s, who was the organization?
From Częstochowa. Częstochowa is a city in Poland.
Was that like a society or?
Yeah. Most of the bigger towns, cities, created societies. Some dated from before the war. The people who came earlier started this, the same thing, to have the connection from home. Some of them created after the war, let's say from Lodge, where I belong, I am a member. This was created over 100 years ago by people who came before World War I, also to help each other.
Are these Jewish organizations?
Jewish, only strictly Jewish.
Okay. So,
And after this generation, when we started to come, we joined because it's from our city, Lodge. Not everybody joined, people were spread out through all United States, but a big group of our people in New York, we joined. And the other generation, which was the generation of our parents, some of our grandparents, they left the world. So what's left was left, what the survivors of the Holocaust. Unfortunately, now we are leaving the place too. It's getting smaller and smaller.
in the 50s, what did these kind of organizations do socially, and how often did they meet?
In the 50s, well, these people that came before the war that had the organization, that to them it was continuing life. We were newcomers and we really didn't have too much time for socializing to such an extent. But we tried very much because it was important for us to be among our own people. We created our own group, being that we were left without anybody, teenagers, broken up people. We needed each other to comfort, to just to feel that we are not all alone. And we became like family. We were surrogated sisters and brothers and cousins, and our children had somebody because they were deprived of grandparents, uncles and aunts and family that we knew when we were growing up, we had. And it continued to grow. Along the way, we started to go summers to the Catskills, which was a tremendous, tremendous help in our survival.
So who was in your surrogated family?
I have a lot of them are just left. But I have,
Who was it originally?
well, originally I survived with a cousin, one cousin. I came from a very large family, not immediate, we were only 2 children. But my mother came from 7 siblings, my father came from 8 siblings, and they all had children. My grandparents were still alive, they perished in Lodz Ghetto. They had brothers and sisters. They had extended families, and we were very close, every one of us.
Right.
So I survived only with 1 first cousin and 2 second cousins in Israel, that we were very close. Because we were close before the war, we were close during the war. Unfortunately, after the war, they went in a different direction. It just came out that way for different reasons. But we were always, till this day, I'm still very close with the children. But one friend that I worked with in ghetto, met there, became friendly, used to meet, because we had 1 day off Sundays from work, so we used to meet sometimes also. We came to Auschwitz with the remnants of our closest families. It was my mother's 2 sisters. One had never had children, the other one had 2 daughters that came also.
What was her name?
My mother's sister,
The ones you can't give me the names of the people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my mother's sisters was Bella and Ida. Bella had no children, was younger than my mother, because my mother and my father died in the ghetto in 1942 from the good life that we had. Ida had the two daughters, Hella and Sella. Two brothers, my mother's two brothers with their wives and children, very young children. I had only one brother that was 5 years old when the war started. When we came to Auschwitz, he was 10 years old. My cousins from my mother's brothers, one uncle had two boys, also the same approximately age, 10 and 12. The other one had a daughter the same age as my brother, 10 years old. And there's this history. So we remained in Auschwitz with my two cousins and my Aunt Bella. During the 6 weeks, I'm going back to that friend. When we were chased out of the trains, when we arrived, somebody called my aunt's name. And this was my girlfriend, Nelly. She said in Polish to my aunt, "Where is Hala?" Which means me. She said, "She's right here." P.S. This friend of mine was an only child, and she came all by herself because her mother was very, very sick and they didn't even take her on the train. She came by herself, and I said, "Come be with us." So we were 5 of us. Myself, my aunt, Sella, and Hella, and Nelly, the 5. We used to have to line up in 5s, 10 times a day. Everything was in 5s. But my aunt, once we went through many selections to the 6 weeks. At one selection she was taken, but she managed to run away and come back to us. But she realized that she probably, at the end, will not survive because she was in her 40s. She was an old person. She was in the 40s. Useless. And, as a matter of fact, she had her diamond in her tooth, hidden. And then she said to us, "I'm not sure what's going to happen with me. I want you to have that." So we were keeping it. It was in a piece of oh my God, I forgot that you use to clean your face. Cotton.
Okay.
And a small piece of cotton. Her brother-in-law from her husband's side was a dentist, and he managed to do something like that. Just mention this for a reason. At the very last selection, they took her away, and my cousin Hella, which was 3 years younger than I was 18, she was 15 years old, but she was taller than I, beautiful girl, but she must have gotten fever, and on her lip, she got some signs of the fever, and they took her away. I'll never forget till the day I die. She had beautiful gray, blue eyes, big eyes. Because I turned around, she was taken to the other side, and her eyes became 10 times as big, like bewildered. that was the last time we saw them. Then we went to they sent us to this working camp where we were liberated on May 8th.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Where were you liberated from?
Halbstadt was the name of the camp. It was never a camp before we came. It was a tremendous factory, a factory of material goods. They took one floor and they converted it to a place for us to stay. The next building they converted to a factory of ammunition. So when we came there, we couldn't believe that this is true, that there are bunks with straw mattresses, with a cover, with a blanket. You know, the 6 weeks that we were in Auschwitz, we thought that that's the way it's going to be. We're not going to survive anyway. I used to sit with Nellie and on the bunk, and I used to say to her, Nellie, this is our end. If we'll stay here a little longer, we'll die here. There's no question about it. And rumors were, if you are sent out, you send out to similar situations, to similar camps. There's no way we are doomed. And I was never a pessimist by nature. I was always a very much alive person. But this Auschwitz, we thought this is not going to end for us well. But for some miracle, we were liberated.
Who liberated you?
The Red Army. We had 2 shifts. I was supposed to come for the day shift. One of our girls that slept on the next bunk came over to me and she said, "Wake up, something is going on." They didn't wake us. It's to wake us 5 o'clock in the morning, you know. Something's going on. Then the night shift came in. We still lined them up, and some of the girls said, "Something's going on. I don't think you're gonna go to work today." A couple of hours later, they lined us up as usual, and it says official, not just anybody. Some kind of a big shot came, stood up on some bench and said to us in German, "Well, the war is over. You're gonna be taken over by other authorities. We would like to let you know that we suggest you shouldn't leave the place because there are all kinds of characters roaming around. You should be staying here until you'll be taken over. And I would like to ask you a question, the audacity. Do you have anything against us?" Some girls, they were always afraid, you know. No. Couldn't go through my throat to say no, didn't say anything. I was quiet in the back. The audacity. In German, "Habt ihr was gegen uns?"
You said that?
No, that's what he said in German. That meant, "Do you have anything against us?" And in no time, there was nobody there. None of the women guards Nobody. We didn't know what to do.
Did anybody say anything?
No, they didn't say anything. The guards just disappeared. He was the only one who spoke to us. Thank God that we wouldn't probably leave anyway because we were so afraid.
Did anybody want to really hurt him or do anything to him?
Are you kidding? Wanted? Yes. To kill them all and in any way we could. But we wouldn't dare do anything at that time. And we didn't do it either later. That's the way we are. Jews don't know how to kill. We just don't know how to kill. We could only spit on somebody. But that's about all. They disappeared. We had a woman, she was also a prisoner, but she was originated from Germany. She spoke German very well. And they asked in the beginning who speaks German, who that, but she became our oldest. She was the one who represented us. She used to line us up before aristocracy of the German Reich came to check over and take us to work. We were sitting and talking what we're doing, it was already evening, was that. We had French people working with us in the factory. They were not Jewish. They came there, they were brought there because they came from a part of France that was like on the border of Germany. And when the German invaded, they wanted them to become German, and they didn't. They spoke German because it was like on the border. They didn't want to become Germans, they refused. So they took the whole families to work in Germany for them. They were not prisoners. They were with their families. Sundays they could go out and to go to a movie, to go any place. They were free, but they were working with us. They were not allowed to speak to us. But somehow, they gave us some signs how the war is progressing in our direction for us to know that it's going to end soon. And some of the girls were lucky, I was not among them, that used to get from some of them a piece of bread. Of course, it was done in a secret way. They were very, very friendly to us, very nice, kept our spirit a little bit up. So this woman decided, she says, you know what, I'll go to this camp. I don't know how she knew where to find this camp, to these French people, and ask them what to do with ourselves. And that's what she did. And maybe half an hour later, 15 minutes of half an hour, the door opened, and all of them, with the families, came to us. They had a sack of sugar, something, whatever they had, they brought. And one of them played the accordion. And they started to jump and dance with us, We Are Free. We had numbers sewn up on our dresses. They ripped it off, no more numbers. It was something that nobody can imagine what this was. We were bewildered, and it was something that we couldn't believe it's happening, and it was happening.
Did you believe it?
No, I thought it's some kind of a dream, After 6 years, you cannot believe that it really happened.
Did there come a point that when did the point come when you knew it was real?
the next day, in the morning, we were up a whole night. I mean, a whole night it was going on. And in the morning, they were watching over us. They said, you can go out. There aren't any. The Russian army started to come in, because then at night they weren't there yet. The Germans ran away, but nobody was there. In the morning, they started to come in with the tanks, with this, so we knew we could go out. And after a short while, men started to come from the nearby camp. Men from Lodz Ghetto, who were in a walking distance, also in a camp, working there, whatever their work was. They knew about us because when somebody got sick in our camp, they used to bring a doctor from the men's camp, the strike.
Do you know the name of that camp?
Yeah, Friedland. So when they were liberated, they knew that there was a camp of girls from Lodz. Everybody wanted to find his sisters, his mothers, his cousins, whoever. So they all started to come. There was only one case where a father came and found a daughter.
What was that like?
One. It was emotional. We were very envious, of course, but it was one for one. There were no brothers that anybody found. Myself, my cousin Sella, and Nellie, we kept.
So that's who you were liberated with?
Yes, this was our family.
Now, did you have, besides those two, were there other friends that you made?
Well, I remember we made a lot of friends.
So you were close with a lot of people?
Yeah, in camp, the ones that we met in the train at night when it was dark. We didn't know how they looked, but they were sitting next to us. And they put us together as the two girls to make a five of us. And in the morning we recognized each other's face, and we were assigned by fives to the bunks. So these two girls were within the two bunks.
Are there any people from that period of time that you remained friendly with till?
Yeah. Well, I remained friendly to this minute, but we did not see each other right after, but we...
I'll stop the tape.
Yeah.
We were just talking about, I asked you if you were friends.
Yeah. There are some people from camp that we reunited in the States. We met there. We were there together. But after the war, people went their own way, and we reunited in the States, and we became very close friends.
What time frame did you?
What time? In the 50s.
How'd you get together?
How? I tell you the truth. One through the other, and there were a few that lived in the same neighborhood right around here, that we were very good friends. We played cards together, but they left this world already. They were a little bit older, I'm from the younger crowd.
So you met them in the 50s and you were friends till they died?
Yeah.
So that's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long were you in that, what was the name of that?
Hauptstadt.
How long were you there?
We were there from October 44 till May 45.
And
May
where'd you go after that?
Now this is something interesting. As I told you, you need to change.
Not yet.
the men from this camp started to come. They came 2 brothers, 2 young boys. My cousin Sella had a very good friend that she went to school with, and she lived not too far. Very good friend. And these were her brothers. They came to look for their sister, but their sister was not with us in camp. But he knew my cousin Sella, and they knew me too, because through her. And they said, you know what, the Russians started to behave like animals, you know, chasing the girls, and it was really horrible. So they said, you know what, you come with us to Friedland. We have a little apartment there with some friends. You're gonna be with us. We'll have already a little bit food, whatever. And we decided that this is gonna be a good idea, because they were terrible. They used to come at night, they chased the girls. It was really dangerous. So myself, my cousin Sella, and Nellie, we went there.